I'm so grateful to be able to sit with her again and to discuss, because we felt like we had a lot of other things that we still could get into that we didn't last time, just when we were thinking about building community and supporting one another as exceptional parents. And so today, that's what this conversation is going to center on. Because as I share with Portia, I've had several parents reach out to me and talk to me. And when I've had them reach out, especially moms, especially Black moms, have reached out to me and have shared a lot of sentiments of feeling alone, of feeling like they weren't really supported, or feeling like their journey was very difficult, and all these types of things. So I think what we want to do today is talk a little bit about our journeys as exceptional moms and how we came to learn that our children were, in fact, exceptional, because our journeys are very different, but we end up in the same spot. We ended up in the same spot. But also we want to be encouraging and as helpful as possible as we can be to other moms out there who have exceptional children or who think their children may qualify for the program for exceptional children. So we want to make sure that we're providing that space and that we are addressing a need in our community. So I have two children. I have an 11-year-old, and she's exceptional because of her giftedness. She's in REACH, the program for children who have shown signs of being gifted. That's what they call it in Georgia. And she's very productive and successful in that. She's in 6th grade. She's been in the program since 4th grade. That's one of the things that makes my older child exceptional. And then I have my son. My son is 6, and he has well, not 6, he's almost 6. I'm getting ready for that April birthday. But he's almost 6, so he's in kindergarten, and he served via his IEP. Predominantly we're looking at ADHD and autism and speech language delay. And again, I always want to preface and say he has not been diagnosed by a doctor. He has shown signs of autism, and that is what qualifies him for his IEP services. So he does not actually have a diagnosis of autism, but he has the behaviors, and they have to find different ways to say why your child qualifies for services. So this is one of the ways that my son is able to qualify for services. And this is in addition to his speech language delay. So I have, like I said, I have a 5, soon to be 6-year-old and 11-year-old that are both exceptional, but different exceptionalities. And then Portia, you have your twin boys.
Old, both with formal diagnose. They both have their formal diagnosis. They received that, I believe, when they were 3 years old. We went through the process of course, here in Georgia, there's a shortage of psychologists
Psychology. Yeah.
and people that can give you the diagnosis. But like you, Shelby, we had the behaviors that we had a teacher at the school they were at. They told us that they saw some signs and that they
Right.
recommended us for testing. So we got on the waiting list, and we had a wonderful psychologist that did that whole evaluation and then brought us back in, and that's where we got our formal diagnosis for both of them.
And you can hear my little guy in the background. So that's part of this. So I'm not
Yes.
going to put on my Bluetooth. I'm not going to edit it. I mean, it's real. This is real. This is how we're living. And even though this is going to air on a Sunday at 5 p.m., we are filming at 8 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon after we've both been at work all day. That's why you all get to see me in my glasses today. I couldn't even bother to touch my own eyeball. So it's one of those days, but we're here and we're, still making everything happen. But I think, the point that you made about the psychologist, was reaching out to them and having the teacher tell you, was that a public school teacher that recommended that you talk to a psychologist, or was it like a daycare worker? Like, how did that conversation come about?
School system. So it was an evaluator, an
Okay.
education evaluator that came to the daycare center just to do an observation. And that's when she said those things. She asked if the pediatrician had done the screening, and
Right,
no, at that point, it's a little bit different. That was about 5 years ago. So now,
right. And they get new things every year.
and I was just at an autism center, and she was telling me that people were bringing 1-year olds into the autism center with a formal diagnosis from the psychologist. So just in 5 years, so much has changed. Just
Right.
imagine how much could be accomplished if a child were to start receiving those ABA
Early
services,
interventions.
early intervention at the age of 1, receiving the autism therapy. I mean,
Right,
we were, we got in there at 3, 3.5, and that was a blessing, but 1 would have been even better to be armed with that information when
right.
my children were 1. So I am glad that things have come much further along, but it was a long way for a psychologist. And even with that psychologist, because that person wasn't, in our insurance network, we had to pay a lot of money out of pocket.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a sacrifice. I mean, but
And
of
you had to
course,
do it for 2 children because you have twins.
no discount. She was not in network. I mean, she was very well respected, and she was well worth, the months long wait. But at the time, getting the complete evaluation was about $700 per child.
Excuse me, go see your sister, please. Okay, bring it to me. We need the count.
Need a password.
We need a password. We need all these, we need all these different things. And again, this time, like I said, guys, I'm not, usually my kids are not with me when I film, but I'm not going to,
Tyzik. Mom, you need to play number block.
you need to play number block. Okay. Can we wait 1 second before we number
You
block?
like number blocks too. My boys love number
Oh yeah, we
blocks.
got all the toys. We got all the number blocks.
Oh,
Okay, does that work?
yes, yes,
Okay, go do
yeah.
that. Yes, ma'am.
I finished my Excel. I
Oh.
have an hour and 22
Okay, you can go ahead. You have permission now. Parenting, it does not end. So like I said, we're rolling with it today. This is what it looks like midweek, is when it's not filmed on a Sunday afternoon, and it's real. I mean, it is what it is. People can curate and make things look a certain way, but I think that Portia and I both know very, very well, like with our kids, life is very unpredictable sometimes. Things change really quickly. I do want to say that is not one of my children screaming. They are watching on PBS Kids, they're watching Odd Squad. So I guarantee everything is fine. It's probably something related to an odd number, some strange occurrence that has happened there. But yes, so you said you got the information and you went and talked to the psychologist. So my
Psychologist.
journey began differently because my child turned 1 into a home during COVID. So when, yeah. So we got to, he was at daycare and was trucking along fine for the most part. We did notice previously that he had some issues with nystagmus, and that's a visual condition where your eyes will bounce. So there were some neurological concerns related to the nystagmus that I think I caught when we started noticing when he was about 7 months old. But then COVID happened, and it was right before his first birthday when we shut down. We shut down mid-March, March 15th-ish, I think. And then his birthday was April 11th when he turned 1. So he turned 1 and 2 at the house. So April, he's talking fine, trying to learn how to walk and do different things. He finally learned to walk at like 18.5 months, but the cutoff is really supposed to be 18 months. So he did it, but he was a little bit shy of exactly that marker, that month, that 18-month marker. So that was something that was kind of on our radar. And then he was talking. So 1-year-old talking in March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, and I think around, I want to say December, or maybe it was October, maybe around November, December, he just stopped talking. So I got the experience. So for some parents, if you're unaware, some kids are nonverbal. They start as nonverbal, they stay nonverbal. That really doesn't change. They may have a device or something that helps them communicate, but they stay nonverbal for the most part. There are other children that are nonverbal and they begin to talk. My child was a child that was verbal who became nonverbal and then basically had to relearn how to talk. And that's a hard thing as a parent when you have a child and you feel like they're trucking along and then something out of the ordinary happens. And my experience differing from Portia's is that I had already had one child. You know, they were a good amount of years apart. I had been one of those, it didn't happen on schedule. And I think that's another thing we have to be mindful of. You know, yes, there are milestones and everything that children should make and a good developmentally appropriate time for them to make it. But I think we also have to try not to stigmatize parents and children when they don't make those written milestones, because there are differences. And even again, with me talking about why I say I'm the twice exceptional mom, I'm gonna say it again, it's not because I'm such an amazing mom. It's not because I'm the best mom out there, I'm so exceptional. No, I'm the twice exceptional mom because I have two children who qualify for the program for exceptional children in the state of Georgia. One qualifies as a gifted student and one qualifies as a student who's basically has an IEP. So which would be considered a special education student. So I have two of them and they're both exceptional. So I'm twice exceptional because I'm their mom. And you know, when you compare my daughter's progress to my son's progress, it's definitely were huge differences. And then some people will try to attribute some of it to gender, you know, especially with language, because they always say, well, girls, you know, are better speakers than boys and they start speaking sooner than they do. But I just knew in my spirit that something was wrong because I also have 2 degrees in early childhood education. And even though I focus on kids like second, third, fourth, and fifth, that's my jam. I really don't deal with pre-K, kindergarten, first grade. That's not my ministry. I still am aware of what should be happening. And my ex-husband, my then husband at the time, he was very much on that kick of there's nothing wrong with that boy. That boy's fine. He you know, you being paranoid, you just, you know, mama's always are doing too much, you always are worried. But I knew my experience beyond just being a mother, you know, to my daughter, my experience as an educator, and just my gut also. I knew that there was something else going on with my son and we needed to figure it out, because if we didn't figure it out now, it would be potentially a much bigger problem later. And I mean, and I'm sure that's where you guys were also at that point, right?
I mean, it's definitely not. We both saw some delays, but my boys were premature, so that was always our explanation. You know, there was always the catch-all. Well, you
They're
know,
preemies, they're preemies, right?
everybody catches up by the time they get to kindergarten. But I
Right.
just noticed that the gap was widening
Yeah.
between them and their peers and their classmates. So that's when we decided to go in to have the formal diagnosis. I'm glad we did, but at the same time,
Yeah.
I wish I hadn't, because
Because it
then
kind of pulls the rug under you a little bit because, you know, you can rationalize away, like you said, some of it and say, oh, well, it's this or it's not that. And then it's like, once you get it, it makes it very, very real. And the thing I always say, because this is my observation as a teacher coming in, whenever you tell a parent that their child is like not performing well academically, um, especially academically, even behaviorally, sometimes there's it's a very hard thing for a parent to take that's a real parent, especially because we view our children oftentimes as extensions of ourselves, even though they are their own individual people. But when you start hearing that, you know, your child is not doing well academically, or your child is not doing well behaviorally, or their, you know, behavior is off-putting and they can't make friends, or those different types of things. So when we look at, when we hear those things, it's like, well, what did I do? Did I do something wrong when I was pregnant? Did I, like, for me, like, I'm not gonna lie, I had at the beginning of it, I was really enjoying some tuna fish. Like, did I have too much mercury? You know, you start questioning all types of things. Like, Was it something that I ate? Was I not taking care of myself? For me, my dad was terribly ill when I was carrying my son. I was under immense amount of stress because my dad had a below knee amputation in the midst of my pregnancy. So what had begun as like a simple diabetic toe amputation ended up being like most of his leg. And getting him through that process while I was still heavily pregnant myself and navigating a new position at the same time at work as well. And so I've guilted myself a lot about, I have a lot of guilt about the amount of stress I was under and wondering how much of that affected him. So it's hard when you get the diagnosis and you hear that something's going on because you wonder like, well, what could I have done differently? Or if I had known then like, oh, maybe I would have eaten everything organic, or maybe I would have done this, done that. But at the end of the day, they still don't even have enough information to tell us all the things to do to prevent it. Some people are even saying like autism is really like the next step in evolution, because so many people are coming out with it. And it's just that we're seeing it in real time, seeing how people are changing in the way they communicate with each other. But definitely, I understand what you're saying. Like when you got the news, you could kind of you couldn't explain it away anymore. So when you got the news, you couldn't explain it away, and you knew you had to act. What were your initial thoughts? Like, were you thinking, okay, we're gonna do X, Y, and Z, and then they'll be right on track, or I don't know what's gonna work. We're just gonna try, throw the whole kitchen sink at them and see what sticks, or what was your approach?
Psychologist framed it. She immediately framed it, and told us, hey, there's a lot of work, we don't have time to waste, you've got a
Right,
lot of work to do. As she was sharing the diagnosis and what it meant, I mean, she had get on this waiting list, you need these services, you need to start now, because at the time waiting list for therapy, you could be in limbo for like 6 7 months. So
right.
we immediately got into action. But I mean, so there was really no time to process it all, because the period it became before diagnosis and after diagnosis. I mean, we
Right.
just all of a sudden we just got thrown into this world, and there really was no time to
Get
process.
acclimated. Yeah.
We just got thrown into it.
Do you feel like for you as a parent that there's a certain amount of trauma that comes with having to make a change like that really quickly?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I can't think of any similar situation where somebody's world, when you think about, all your hopes and fears and disappointments, and being forced to pivot and change your mindset about everything that you had dreams for your children, just change, instantly. I mean, I
Right.
can't compare that to any other experience.
And I want to add on to what you're saying because I want to make sure that people understand when we're talking about our hopes and dreams. Like, we still have hopes and dreams. We still have high expectations. My son will tell anybody he is going to be an astronaut. I've told my principal that, we have a school here that's named after a local man who was an astronaut. I was like, oh, this school's name is going to be changed. It's going to be named after my son. So you just clock it. 20, 30 years, it does expect the school's name to change because he's going to be an astronaut. He can tell you anything you want to know about the planet, stars, all the things. But I think that when we talk about like, when you think about what's quote normal or perceived as normal or neurotypical, and then you see that your child is not having that type of experience, it is almost like exploring a different planet or a different country, like, and being in a different, having to change your entire mindset about what your child's possibilities are. For some parents, it's even considering like long-term care when they're getting older. And I am going to do something with a counselor I know who's worked in social services and everything. We'll talk about how you make sure that you can get proper care for children who need care as adults also. But it's just a lot to take in consideration, and you're looking at it and you have to reframe your thoughts. That's hard. And you know, you and I were talking before that they're saying now, like parents who of children with autism, they're saying that they have the same symptoms of PTSD, people with PTSD who fought in wars, because it's a constant barrage of information. It's a changing landscape. It's different all the time. Your child, like my favorite thing is the fixations that change. It's my favorite thing. Like I'm gonna spend all my money on muffins because that's the only thing you're gonna eat this week, and then all of a sudden it's donuts. All of a sudden it's donuts, and now I got all these muffins I can't do anything with. You know, these are the types of things you have to adjust to, because it's like, as a parent, and it sounds very small to a regular parent, I'm sure, but it's just like, well, what am I going to feed this child if this child refuses to eat other foods because they texturally cannot stand it? It will make them gag. It will make them sick. They look at it and cannot even, like, just the idea of it. Like, that's a very real thing. And then people go, oh, they're just picky. They'll eat it if you fix it. No, they will not. No, they will not.
Child will starve himself if you
They
don't
will.
one.
They literally will. They have a different level of willpower than a regular kid.
It's definitely a journey. It's definitely a journey, and I hear so many of the same things from other parents that are on the same journey with me. It's just like nothing else. If you haven't walked in these shoes, you have no idea what it's really like.
No, you know, and I mean, I said it on the meeting I had with April Kelly Neal earlier this week, was because she was sharing her experience and how the teacher her son had just didn't really know what to do with him, kind of put him in the corner. I was like, you know, teachers need more training too. Teachers need more education too. I think sometimes people think it comes from like a bad place, or, you know, maybe thinking a teacher doesn't like a child, but I think sometimes they don't genuinely understand. And just like you were saying, like how far research has come in the last 5 years, we're learning stuff all the time. I can pinpoint specific kids I knew growing up and specific kids I've taught that in hindsight, I'm like, they were undiagnosed autistic,
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I
you
mean,
know?
absolutely.
And then I think even when we're thinking about those, so then it's like, well, they were undiagnosed autistic. Some of it makes you wonder, like, well, were they undiagnosed because nobody wanted to know? Or was it because apples and trees, that everybody in the family is like this, so they didn't think it was different because everybody's like that?
Mhm.
It's just a lot of different reasons and rationales that could be behind it. But I think, you know, my biggest thing going forward is when I'm having my dealings with my son, especially like if it's behaviorally, because we've talked a little bit about that. A lot of behaviors that autistic children display are, some of them can be viewed as off-putting.
Mhm.
It's a lot of social, um, they are lacking in some social cues oftentimes, and it makes it difficult sometimes for them to have friends and interact with people and all those types of things. But we still have a responsibility. I certainly feel a responsibility to make sure that my child is aware of how people are perceiving him, because the way that he is perceived will oftentimes dictate how he is treated.
That's correct.
And again, going back to twice exceptionality. So if he's perceived as just being a behavioral problem, or, you know, he's hyperactive, somebody might not look past those behaviors and say, oh, but he's also a really good reader, or
Mhm.
he's really brilliant at science. But those are important too, to, you know, make those children feel like you can acknowledge some strengths that they have.
Right, 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 right. Yes, yes.
Well, what do you feel like has been the easiest route for you? I know all of them are probably pretty rocky, but what do you feel like has been the easiest route for you when you're taking your son someplace different, or they're changing classes at the beginning of the school year, to kind of like acclimate the teachers and maybe even some of the students with your children, and maybe some of the challenges they may have throughout the year, and how it may affect the classroom?
You know, just be as, you know, we've been blessed that, we have had some really, really good teachers. But in the case where I am bringing him someplace unfamiliar, I just, all I can do is just, say, hey, this is my son. He asks a lot of questions. We're working on personal space. We're working on boundaries. But if he gets too close, you can just say, I need my personal space, because that is one of the challenges that I have been working with one of my children is, like if he sees somebody he wants to be friends with, or even mommy. He's
Right.
all up in your face.
Yes.
And it's
Mm-hmm.
all love, but I mean, that is something we're working on. But to me, transparency, honesty is the best way, and if people aren't teaching their children to be tolerant and respectful of differences, to me, they're the ones that are having a bigger challenge.
Right. Right. And I think that's a whole part of it too. Is like when we're looking at empathy, we're looking and looking at the way things are going right now in our country and what people are feeling comfortable saying and doing to other people for being different. It is of the utmost importance for parents to teach their children how to treat others with kindness and to maybe not jump to conclusions about people. And I think also it's important to, I almost feel like, warn our children about it. Like, I hate to say it, but warn them like, hey, you're doing this behavior and to you it's perceived as one way. And then to another person, it's perceived a totally different way. And we want to protect our babies. And a big part of that is making sure that the people we have our babies around are educated about them and educated about why. I think it's not just the behaviors. Like, I think it's really good that you're saying, well, they might do this, but also helping them understand why is the child doing that? You know what I mean?
And then,
Like, so sometimes he gets to that point where with his mixed receptive language disorder, sometimes he can't get words out properly, and sometimes he's not fully processing everything coming in. And if he hits that frustration level, he just, you know, but that's a way where a lot of people get into altercations is when somebody does like that. But he's not pointing at the person. He's really pointing for whatever thing it is he wants or he wants to do, but he can't get the word out. But the perception is there that it's an aggressive, gesture of, you're gonna but it's really like I want this thing, but I can't think of the thing, but I really want it. I want the thing right now, but I need you to get it, but I can't tell you what it is, but you got to get it right now, and that's a hard, and people just legitimately don't get it. And they don't know. It's like learning almost like a different language. And you can't even say that, well, if you understand one autistic kid, you're going to understand the other one. You cannot do that. And you're a mom of twins, because don't you even feel like with your boys that they're different also? Like, you can't say, oh, well, this one acts exactly like this one. Even though they're twins, it's not the Patty Duke show. They look alike, they walk alike, they talk alike. It's not that.
completely different. And even within their classrooms, I mean, when I visit their classroom, when they were like in a self-contained classroom, I mean, it would be a class of maybe 10, and every single one of those children had a different form of autism. I mean, you had one on one side of the room that talk, but was missing the social cues. Another
Right,
one would be the opposite of that. So, I mean, even within one classroom or one grade level, it can go all over the place.
right, right. Think so. If you were to tell another mom, exceptional mom, or potentially exceptional mom or dad, what to look out for, how to perceive when they get news that their child is in fact exceptional, like what do you think you would say to them and encourage them to do?
Don't be in refuse to live in denial. Stay educated, be open to whatever news that you could possibly hear. If I could have done it over again, I probably would have been just again, because I feel like I was blindsided with, it was just
A
not
lot.
blindsided because I knew something was wrong, but I
It's
it
different than saying, oh, your child has a visual impairment. And you can say,
yes, it's
oh, well, we're
different.
going to get them glasses. Or your child has a hearing impairment. You say, oh, well, I'm going to get them a hearing aid.
Never, it hits a little different when you hear it from the professional who sees it every day. But if someone were going into an appointment with the psychologist, I would recommend that they stayed prayed up, maybe possibly fasting or just being in an atmosphere of prayer and acceptance going into that appointment before they get that information. I think that would particularly help. And especially if, somebody has a partner or a co-parent, if those two were on the same accord, just to remind themselves that it's just a diagnosis. It's not a sentence. It's just parenting and life will look extremely different, but it is not the end
Right. It may be an ellipsis, but it's not a pure.
point yet. I was blindsided, but not blindsided, if that makes
Right.
any
It
sense.
does. It's like you figure something was going on. You got the information, and then you were just inundated with all the things you would have to do as a result of that information. And to not move forward would be, dereliction of duty as a parent, honestly. And I think that, that's a big portion of it too, because, you know, if I could tell any parent what to do with their child, I would say I would try to get a diagnosis as early as possible, like you were saying, because that time is valuable. And I'm a little disappointed that nationally we never came up with a plan for these COVID babies, because people knew these children were at home, and and the parents were on computers. We were teaching and, and doing business calls and all types of things from home. And you can't be fully present at work and fully present at home at the same time. And it definitely was a new normal for everybody. However, I just feel like there are so many people who are experts in child development and seeing everything coming. Like, I don't understand why every classroom from like 3K to like fifth grade at this point does not have a parapro, like in the entire country. And a parapro is a teacher's aide, because some people call them teacher's aides in other areas, but there should be a person in there. I don't understand why there were universal screeners put in place to check for certain things, because parents were probably thinking a lot of the behaviors they were having were a result of lack of socialization and social contact, and not necessarily an indicator of autism. And, I can see even in some of my son's peers, like the difference between him and some of the other ones who I can spot them, I can spot them now. Between some of the other ones that have autism and him, is because I know it's because he got his early interventions, and that we still are doing interventions. Like, he goes and we're very grateful for the services we receive from therapy specialist George. Y'all are amazing. But he goes and he gets speech there weekly, and he alternates between occupational therapy and physical therapy, because he needs those things. But if you delay the diagnosis, it does not work as well. And I don't think people realize how much of the brain has already developed by age 3. There's just so much to take into consideration when we're doing it. But I want to say, add on to another thing you said too. You said being prayerful, if you're, for people who are spiritual and prayed up. I think it is very important to be prayerful, because I think that all these children have purpose. God does not make mistakes. I feel like my son was sent to me to make me a better teacher. My son was sent to me to make me an advocate for kids like him. He gave me a different perspective on life. He definitely keeps me on my toes. Um, all the things, but I want to say that I know he's going to be amazing, regardless of all the diagnoses and challenges my son has had, and he's overcome many already. I know that he is going to be amazing, and he's going to leave a positive marker on this world. And I fully believe that about your 2 sons as well.
Thank you.
And I want to encourage the mothers out there, especially mothers that look like you and I, because in the Black community, a lot of times there's a lot of stigma attached to having children like ours. See, because stuff like that. I know you heard him screaming. There's a lot of there's a stigma attached to having children like ours. And even some people in the church might say, oh, well, you just ain't believed hard enough. You're not praying hard enough. You need to rebuke that. You need to do. I don't think that is what's actually helpful for parents like us. I don't think that's helpful for the body of Christ. I think what you can do is pray that God continues to bless your children to be surrounded by the right people who will love them, who will pour into them, and will see the greatness that God has inside of them, and to make them into who He has called them to be. And I think if you're coming from a religious perspective, if you're going to say anything other than that, you could keep it. I think that if you're coming from a perspective when you're looking at the behaviors and you want to tell somebody that, they're not disciplining their child enough, or all these different types of things that can be said, I think that you have to let people raise their own children. And I think unless it's affecting you, you need to back up off of it.
That's right.
Back up off, because that can tear away at other relationships too, because it does make you want to avoid certain people who may say certain things or avoid certain situations. Like I had somebody say, well, why don't you take your kids so-and-so, so-and-so? I said, oh, my son's not going to do that. I'm not going to bring him in that. And they're like, oh, you got to speak life into your child. And I'm like, I speak life into my child more than anybody else, but I know my child. And I am not going to ask my child, except for church, except for mass, which is 1 hour. I don't ask him to go anywhere and sit down and be still and try to be, have a social gathering people, because that's not his strong suit at this point in life. And so if he's running around and he's making noises or flapping or stimming, whatever he chooses to do, because we love to cut off a good light and open a couple doors on the right day, if he's doing all those things, he's not going to be the ideal visitor, or ideal guest for someone to have. So I'm not going to put him in a situation where he's going to be scrutinized or, looked down upon because somebody doesn't understand.
Right. Yes. And everybody does not understand. Everybody does not get it.
They don't. And I think that what I want to say to everyone who is watching or who shares it with someone else is that the more that I talk, the more that Portia talks, and the more that you talk about your experiences, especially when you're talking to other parents, especially when you talk to parents who look like us, you're making other people feel seen. You're making them know that their experiences they're not alone and lone dating. You are validating another parent. You are making them feel seen. You're making them feel heard, because what I keep hearing over and over again is, I felt so alone. And then I heard that person say something and I felt different. And I think during this time, especially when people are actively and purposefully going after rights for children like that look like ours or have needs like ours, who are separating them, who are isolating them, who are saying that they should not be in the classroom with other children, that this is the time, especially for us to speak out and come together and validate one another and to be a champion for our kids. And we just have to do it. And a big part of it is education and educating the adults around them. And also, like when Rob and I talk, like you can't let your foot off the gas. You gotta push the pedal down, even if you don't even know you have enough in the tank to go far. You have to stretch it. I feel like if my experience on this journey was me driving a car, I feel like a couple times, you know how they give you that ethanol gas and it doesn't run the same, okay? And they might have even put a little water or something.
I
Like
agree.
I didn't have what I needed, but I made it work, you know?
Mhm.
And that's what we have to do. And we have to just make each other feel seen. And I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for you sharing all the things that you've experienced. I'm grateful for April Kelly Neal for her experience and for her advocating for kids like ours and for being very aware. I love that she is so aware of perceptions and how, it's not just perceptions with behavior, it's perceptions with race, it's perceptions with social economics that go into our children's education and how people treat them. And I'm just in awe of all you women who come before me and how you're able to do all that you do and be fabulous while you do it.
I mean, you just get it done. I mean, I just want my children to be happy, successful, independent adults. I mean, that's my end goal, and
Yes.
whatever it takes to get us there.
Yes, that's why I tell my daughter all the time. I said, my goal is that if something were to happen to me, I said, like, if I could die, if I had to die tomorrow, I would want to be able to die knowing that whatever I've taught you, whatever you need to know, like you can take it, you can apply it, and you'll be able to take care of yourself as an adult. Like, even because we don't know the day and the hour, we don't. And we just pour into our kids, and we hope that what we've poured is enough. And it's gonna get them where they need to be.
Far away. Yes, I do want my babies to just be happy, successful, independent young adults. That's all I want. They don't need to be president. They don't need to promise to take care of me, which would be nice.
I need my son to promise to take care of me. I would tell no lie. That boy better take care of me.
And all those things. I just want them to be happy, successful in anything they put their mind to. That's all.
So I guess the message for today is to the other exceptional moms and exceptional dads is that you're not alone. We all have our own stories. Our journeys may be different, but we have the same goal in mind, is for these children to be independent, to be well taken care of, and well loved by the people in their life
Amen.
and treated well. And I hope that as I continue this Twice Exceptional Mom series and I continue to talk to the Portia Lakes and April Kelly Neals and Robin Thompsons of the world, that I am helping other parents feel seen and supported and validated. And that whether you're feeling angry, frustrated, sad, disappointed, all of those feelings are valid and it's okay. And you got other people who are going to work through those feelings right along with you. We're going through the same thing with you, and we're just going to go on this journey together, and we're going to keep speaking up for our babies and making sure they get what they need, at school especially, but also at home and in their social interactions with people outside of those areas, because we like to take them out every now and then too.
We do.
We do like to go to public. You might see us at a restaurant, you know,
Yes, yes, yes.
you know, if you see them get up and walk around with an iPad, don't flinch too hard, they might be doing something. If you see a child shoving food in their mouth because they might have a sensory issue. I promise their parent is not starving them. I promise we feed the babies. But just be kind. I think the at the end of the day, be kind, be empathetic, be loving, be the person to other people's children that you would want them to be to yours, even when it's difficult at times. And if you're in doubt or you're not sure about your child and where they stand, and you think there may be something going on, definitely take Portia's advice. Go see a pediatrician and you can get a referral that you need. And they can help you come up with the plan. And once you get the plan, don't be afraid to implement it. And you can go back and listen to my segment with Portia about Katie Beckett if you need help with funding that plan. So there are always options and you're not alone.
Never alone. Never alone. It's been
Never.
great, Shelby. It has.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Portia. And I know that we'll get together and we'll do this all over again. And hopefully next time we'll have Robin and a couple other moms because I think this is that we've got to do. We got to talk it out. We're going to be our own little group therapy, it seems like.
I love it. All right. I appreciate you, twice exceptional mommy.
I appreciate you, twin mom of two boys.
Woo!
Exceptional twin mom with two boys. My one boy is plenty.
I know, I know. Well, it's been great. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you, Portia.